What grossed you out so much in a relationship that you just left? My now long since divorced ex-husband admitted to me, after a night of weeping, wailing and vodka, in a desperate attempt to salvage our marriage via radical honesty, that he was so hypersexualized as a teen that he had done many suspect things. Many red flags were flown. He'd been a peeping Tom. He'd considered selling a jogger, and on multiple occasions, he had his 9-year-old mare caught a horse. He took my catastrophic shocked silence as a chance to explain that he needed a step stool to get enough height for insertion. Suddenly, the dancer from the all-nude bar he'd been screwing was unimportant. She wasn't that bad. Shit. I realized very quickly that I needed to have a friendly discussion with her for her safety, and I did in fact forget all about my heartbreak. The radical honesty was, in that sense, a success. Edit. When I left this here last night, I had a vague thought that this was perhaps not the best story to share, as I'd readily agreed to never speak of this to anyone in order to escape the house and the conversation. The statute of limitations on never telling anyone expired some time ago, as we have no contact. Obviously, yeah? As I put my head on the pillow, I heard my notifications going like mad, and it seems that when I break an agreement, I break that vow with a vengeance. Thank you, kind redditors who have so generously awarded the sordid tale. I am honored by your largesse. I went away with my ex and saw his toothbrush for the first time. It had black mold growing on it and the bristles were so flat the toothbrush had a middle parting. I had a conversation with him about hygiene and told him to get a new toothbrush. But when I stayed at his house 2 weeks later, the cursed toothbrush was still there. So I ended it. Edit. It wasn't charcoal toothpaste. Her breath was so bad I couldn't make out with her. All I could think of was, don't vomit. Don't vomit. Edit. First date led to makeout session, but alcohol was involved and either masked the smell, or my horniness plus liquid courage just made me not give it a second thought. Second date we ate some super spicy curries and that either dulled my senses enough or again, my horniness, and lots of kissing breaks, got me through it, and we made it to third base. My horniness prevailed. Third date, both of us just went right to my place for sex and her breath just really was unbearable. She went down on me and I couldn't perform because I was so devastated from her breath that I was just trying to not vomit. She wouldn't let me go down on her, which looking back on things probably was a good thing. TLDR, her bad breath made me nauseous and impotent. My horniness could not overcome it and that was the last we hung out. Dated a guy who said even the smell of mint would make him gag. Mint anything. Ice cream. Gum. Toothpaste. So yeah, he didn't brush his teeth. Wouldn't hear a bar of it. When I said there were non-mint toothpastes on the market, I realized after over 6 months together that he was just generally unhygienic and had a specific hang up about brushing his teeth. He told me he had memories of his mother holding him down to forcefully brush his teeth as a child, because he hates mint so much, but I have to wonder if it was always about the mint, or actually the fact that the taste of mint was the most tangible part of that childhood trauma. I showered at his place after staying over and I asked for a towel. He gave me one which had little skin flakes on. I asked for a clean one. He asked what I meant. He did not realize that you need to wash towels because they just have water on them, so they clean themselves. The thought of someone saying, "What do you mean?" when you asked for a clean towel is cracking me up. To paraphrase Jerry Seinfeld, why should I have to wash my towels? When I get out of the shower I should be the cleanest thing in the room. I was dating a girl when I was younger. She seemed nice and she had 2 small cats. One weekend I went to visit her and the cats weren't there. I asked her where they were. She told me they had gotten annoying and so she put them in the car and drove to an abandoned bush area and left them. I faked an emergency at home. We lived about a 2-hour drive apart. Left and broke up with her when I got home. Should have peed on her doormat on the way out to keep other cats away. Bro, what an absolute monster. I couldn't even imagine doing some shit like that. I have 5 rescue cats of my own who aren't allowed outside. They'd never survive a day out there. This makes me so sad for those poor helpless babies. People are so cruel. At a party with some of my closest friends and a lot of their mutual, one of our friends who had recently been diagnosed with cancer was sharing some of his experience with chemo. My then GF interrupted him by saying, "Oh come on, it's not that big of a deal. We all probably have cancer. Moles are usually cancer. Look, I've probably had cancer in all these places on my arm where I had moles removed. There were a lot of other issues that lead to it, but I broke up with her a few days later. I was just so appalled by her lack of self-awareness. These were my friends who I had known for a decade, and she'd only known them for about a year, and we were in a small group of maybe 9 people, most of whom she hadn't even met before. It disgusted me and I couldn't spend the rest of my night near her. Ended it within the week. Reminds me of my ex-sister-in-law who had kidney cancer and was scheduled for chemo. She was desperate and having something of an emotional breakdown. Her sister's boyfriend was a healer. He gave her reassurance and said, "I've had kidney cancer too, and I healed myself with positive thought." She cancelled her chemo. Then he persuaded her to drive to see him once a week, 7 hours round trip each time. Paid him a lot of money for him to ring some temple bells and chant, etc. Until one day she collapsed in pain, pissing blood, rushed to the ER, kidney removed within a couple of days. Thank goodness it hadn't metastasized. When she came to her senses and confronted him, it turned out he'd never had kidney cancer. It was a metaphor. 15 years later the sister is still with that effing guy, and they are estranged from the rest of the family. When she was so insistent about not using a condom during sex, and when we were just going about our daily lives, she would constantly talk about how much she's always wanted kids all for herself. We were 18 at the time. I left her in the dust so quick. Left a girl like this who would always try to go from BJ to on top, without a condom, just hoping I'd get caught up in the moment. Always talking about wanting kids and acting like it wasn't on purpose. When they sent me videos of them cutting themselves, cause I accidentally fell asleep for 2 hours, and they were convinced I just stopped liking them, and they wanted to kill themselves, cause I took a nap. Big F no, from me, man. I had a girl like that too. We talked a lot on the phone and I had it 1 or 2 times when I disagreed to meet up, because I had stuff to do, and then she said that she would cut herself and it would be my fault. I got out as good as I could handle without hurting her too much. We were both pretty young, me 17 and her 15 or 16. She has now a fiancé while still going to school at 18. The swastika I found under her left tit. What a sentence. I hooked up with a girl at a show once, years and years ago, and then noticed the next morning that she had one tattooed, poorly, on her knuckle. 2 days later she found and contacted me via Facebook to tell me she had chlamydia and that I should go get checked. Oops. Crying if I didn't have sex with him, needing to be touching me constantly, and eventually threatening to kill himself when I tried to break up with him. The guy texted and called for about 5 years afterwards. We dated for like 2 months. I'm 37 and still have one of those from when we were 14. He maintains a relationship with my mom on Facebook. She knows not to talk to him about me and he's blocked on everything. Pure insanity. Always. Why wouldn't you just give us a chance? Because I don't like you, you idiot. FFS. 23 years? That's just pure insanity. Seems like you have your safeguards in place, but stay vigilant because that's scary. That's an obsessive and probably mentally ill person. I just left my boyfriend of 10 months because he purposely screams during an argument, so that people in his family will hear everything going on. It is his way to make me feel vulnerable and weak. Says things like, "Good, I want them to hear. I want them to know how psycho you are," when I'm persistently trying to end the argument and speak civilly. It was like a temper tantrum. Needless to say, I left him yesterday. Let me guess. He was shocked that you dared to ditch him, and the fact that you left him made you an even bigger psycho in his eyes. Am I right? OP is probably going to be known as the crazy ex or the psycho ex to the next unlucky person to date the guy. He was on trial for manslaughter and I didn't know until he was found guilty. He kept trying to call me from jail. Edit. It was kidnapping and manslaughter, but he was only found guilty of kidnapping. I have a friend who has kept being with him even after he got sentenced to 30 plus. Although she's broke, a few times a year, she'll travel to Florida to visit him. He and I had just started dating. He was going through a divorce and was low on money. I invited him up for a romantic weekend, paid for a hotel room and food, helped him with gas money, and even gave him some grocery money for the next week. All my treat. I was happy to help, and I didn't ask for a payment, just asked him to get dinner, or something, next time we saw each other, if he could. He had the absolute audacity to text me, when he got home, that I was irresponsible with money. Edit. Well shit. This blew up. To clarify a few things, I had enough of my own money that I was comfortable spending it on a romantic weekend for the both of us. I made it clear to him that I didn't expect anything in return, except if he wanted, and was able, to pay for dinner or whatever the next time we saw each other. He did go through with the divorce, and last I knew, he was seeing someone else, but I can't be sure since he has me blocked on social media, like the fussy he is. No hard feelings though. This was a couple years ago and thankfully we weren't seeing each other long enough for me to be emotionally invested in the relationship. Very much a bullet dodged. Edit 2. Okay, maybe I'm a little bitter about the whole thing, but I really hadn't given it much thought until this question was posted. He blocked me quite a few months after our relationship ended. He did unfriend me right after, but as we had a few mutual friends, we still commented on a few of the same posts and were cordial to each other on SM. I think blocking me was a fussy move, but I do hope he's happy and has grown up since we dated. Our relationship only lasted a couple of months and it was around the beginning on COVID, so it's been a good while. Was he embarrassed about having no money and having me spend a decent amount on him? Maybe, but he certainly didn't have a problem when I offered. I didn't force the issue. Even with the grocery money, it wasn't a super expensive hotel. They weren't fancy dinners, and I didn't flaunt the money I had. I just wanted to treat him to a nice weekend because I felt we both deserved it. When I saw his apartment, the smell hit me first. Just smelled like dog pee and this strong wet musty smell. I couldn't be in there without the windows open. Piles of stuff everywhere, so much that it was spreading to the outdoor balcony, and Diet Coke cans on every surface. The carpet was so dirty you could see all around the edges of the wall a little brown accumulation. That, and the dog wasn't potty trained. While the poo would get picked up, the pee was never cleaned, so it soaked into the carpet, and I learned quickly that if I didn't have shoes on I might get a wet little surprise soaking through my socks. The kitchen tile always felt tacky and greasy. He rarely did laundry of any kind. In fact, I never once saw him do laundry, except the one time I offered to for him. He even had a little gaming den. Edit to add, Fortnite. He played Fortnite. Fortunately the dog wasn't allowed in there, but again, I could see it had never been cleaned once. Dirt and dust and stuff piled everywhere. Cans and old plates of food left out. He told me once that he wanted to get a mini fridge for it, so he never had to get up. I was adamant that he didn't. I don't care if it's his place. The next step after that is peeing in bottles. It was shocking. He seemed so put together on the outside. And then to see how he lived, and this was after cleaning all day. Yes. I don't know if that was more gross or the women don't know what it's like to work. Women can't be trusted. Women this, women that. Boo-hoo. Comments. Also just want to add on. No, I'm not making fun of a depressed person. He was pretty happy, active, and could justify anything he did. Didn't leave immediately when I was told this, but fairly soon after. She told me that she never cleaned up cat bath. She'd simply wait and let the dog eat it. Once the dog got too old, deaf, blind, she would lead the dog to the cat bath. Big nope for me. When my cats throw up, it's a race to see who can get to it first, me or my dog. Edit. It tastes okay, not that great. He had berated me for something silly and he was still angry. When we got home, he wanted sex. I wanted to read. He pressured me. I still said no. He got angry and raised his fist to hit me. I just looked at him. He lowered his fist. I left. I haven't seen him since. It's been a decade. I was in an abusive relationship for 2 years and my ex kept insisting I had too many books. He insisted I never read any of them and I finally caved and told him I'd donate the ones I wasn't interested in anymore and reduce everything to one bookshelf. 1 month later I have my lone bookshelf neatly organized and one stack of books in my desk. He kept asking if I would get rid of the bookshelf and I told him no. We'd agreed previously, multiple times, one bookshelf was reasonable for the townhouse. Jerk revealed to me he hated me reading and having books because it made him feel stupid and he wanted me to stop reading so much. Yeah, that really pissed me off. Broke up with him not long after that. The obsession with social media. It was uncomfortable until I couldn't stand it anymore. Way too different views on life and priorities. I feel that last guy I dated was pretty obsessed, to the point of him being on the phone while visiting with my parents for dinner that they cooked for us both. Like damn. Way different priorities, geez. He convinced me to stay on Skype while I was sleeping, and he'd literally talk to me if I moved an inch thinking I was waking up. What finally got me to stop was when I caught him saying to me in my sleepy days was that if he was next to me I roll, he'd stick his D in me while I'm sleeping, and put much emphasis into doing so without my consent, because you can't say no, and ride me all night long. I finally got the courage to ghost him after hearing that. Did we date the same guy? I had this same thing in an LDR. If I turned off my computer or shut my laptop, he'd call my cell phone till I turned it back on. If I turned off my cell, he'd call my house phone, where I lived with my parents and brother and his small children. Didn't matter if it was 3 AM. He'd call until someone answered and tell them to wake me. Rinse and repeat. So I was forced to answer to keep my family out of it. The worst parts were he would intentionally pick fights with me right before I was going to bed and would keep me up for hours, hoping I would confess that I did something wrong in my delirium. I recently came across some screenshots of me begging him to just leave me alone and let me go to sleep. Happened a good 20 times over the span of 4 hours. It was 2 separate incidents, but long story short, one night she got super drunk at my sister-in-law's house. After spilling a second glass of red wine on my Sill's white carpet, we opted to move her glass further away from the edge of the table. As soon as we left, she screamed, like full-fledged raged, at me for not defending her. The very next time we were together, she got drunk again and accused me of trying to cheat on her. I've never cheated on anyone, and threw her purse at me. I let things calm down and explained to her that I grew up in a house chock full of domestic violence, and that was an absolute line in the sand. And for that reason, I was out. I have told this story about a dozen times on Reddit. The first night I slept at my ex's apartment, I woke up in the middle of the night to an extremely loud scraping noise. It was inside my ear. A roach had crawled into my ear and was scraping against my eardrums with its legs, antennas, whatever. It was the most awful feeling I've ever experienced. I used tweezers to try to get it out, and when I pulled them out after a few times, only half the roach came out. Had to go to the ER to get the rest out and get antibiotics. I had a horrible ear infection for a couple of weeks. The worst part was her saying, "It happens to my son all the time." Like WTF. Found out she had fur wrappers and trash under her bed. Clean your effing house. It has literally haunted me and given me PTSD. When I'm sleeping, if I hear the slightest noise, I jump up and swat uncontrollably around my head ears. My wife was shocked after the first time I did it, when we were dating, but since I told her, she fully understands. Lol. Edit. My top comments are always about my effing ex-girlfriends. F. I once dated a girl that tortured hamsters. She got arrested when I called police. I didn't even give her the honor of the text, just called the cops, gave my testimony in court, and continued with my life. Edit. I've chosen not to go into detail the torture that went on. I'm sorry if this upsets you. It doesn't sit right with me knowing that some people get off on the idea of animals being tortured, and I refuse to feed these fetishes. I'm thrilled that she actually went to court over it. What was her sentence? TBH, I don't remember. I know she lost her job, cause I would get calls from her parents demanding I pay for her rent after what I did. But like I said, I just shut that door and moved on with my life. Didn't look back. My ex would threaten suit anytime things got tough in our relationship. Grossed me out enough that I just called it a day eventually. Cue the desperate calls hours later from the apparent overdose. She's still alive and kicking somewhere though. My ex used to say, constantly, that she wanted to be inside my skin. It was her way of saying she desired me, but it was effing weird and off-putting. so I asked her to stop and she couldn't understand what was so uncomfortable about what she was saying. Pretty soon after that I went on a week-long work trip, and 3 days into it she called and told me the whole time I've been gone she wanted to cheat on me. Then she asked me if she could see other people while I'm gone. I broke up with her pretty much instantaneously. Went on a few dates with a guy, was on a FaceTime call with him cooking, and asked him to show me his skills and what he was making. Flips the camera to show raw chicken just sitting in the sink next to dirty dishes as he seasoned it. My brain checked out after that one. It should have been the time that he fell out of the shower in our Airbnb and was extremely agitated with me afterwards for not trying to save him from falling out. He was 6 feet 2 and 230 pounds. I was about 105 pounds and am just under 5 feet. Not sure what I was supposed to do. It also should have been when he pitched a fit and deleted his FB event for his 40th birthday because not enough people had enthusiastically responded to it in the 3 hours it was up. It also should have been when he booked a 4-seat reservation at a theme restaurant and invited one of his close girlfriends, but told her she couldn't bring a guy and had to bring another girl. We weren't quite finished our drinks when our seating time had run out, and went to sit at the communal table to finish and leave. He chatted with his friend and the girl she brought with his back to me. He didn't even notice when I messaged him a picture of the back of his shirt because I was trying to make a point. What it was being on vacation with him and having him sneer at me for tipping too much. $5 to his suggestion of 50 cents. You're going to skew the economy here. This is why you live paycheck to paycheck. Dude literally lost any glamour charm on him at that moment and looked like nothing but a slimy human lizard freak after that. Never been more repulsed, and I'm still not quite over how disgusted I am with myself for dating him, even a few years later. Oh, I have one of these too. It should have been when he got mad that I didn't cook the chicken like his mom did. He also used to say that cooking was my job. It should have been when he gave me the silent treatment for a week because I got home 30 minutes later. It should have been when he stopped brushing his teeth and they started turning black around the gums and I could smell his breath from the other side of the couch. It should have been when he sexted with his best friend for weeks but got mad at me because I found out. Same friend he wanted to have a threesome with and insisted on for years. It should have been when he started playing a game with me called "Let's See How Long You Can Be Quiet For." It should have been when he spent our anniversary weekend with his work friends after he refused to travel with me anywhere for 5 years. It should have been when I saw him eating his boogers at 26 years old. He ended up breaking up with me in the middle of the street and I moved on so fast. By the end of it I felt so repulsed by him that I really didn't care. Annoyingly turning away in bed because I was crying due to the pain of my kidney infection, for which I later had to go to the hospital for because, duh, it was a kidney infection. Nah man, I don't understand how people can be annoyed about their loved one's acute pain instead of alarmed. I got out of that relationship pretty quick after that. My now BF oftentimes cares more of my health than I do and tells me to go to the doctors if I have pain. I hate this so much. I was with a guy who literally got mad at me for having period pain when I warned him from the beginning I get severe pain. He literally yelled at me for inconveniencing him. I was with a guy who, every single month when I got my period, would angrily complain about how gross it was and how poor him had to go without sex until it was over. And it was the exact same level of anger and resentment every single month about a recurring biological fact of life that I had no control over. Dated a girl for a while, always seemed really well put together, nice clothes, hair and makeup. We usually hooked up at my place. Went to her apartment once. The smell when she opened the door should have been enough. There were dirty diapers, overflowing trash cans in every room of the house. There was a super small walkway through the mounds of dirty clothes to the bathroom. And to make it worse, there were used paper plates on top of the mountain of dirty dishes in the sink. She proudly pointed out a moldy dish and said that it was from when she cooked dinner for 2 of our mutual friends 3 months prior. Nope, the hell out of there. My sister was like this. She currently seems to be recovering, mostly due to the guy she's with right now, who is willing to help her make better habits. We grew up in a hoarder home. Yes, like the TV show. She and I are the most normal out of the 4 kids our parents had. I learned how to clean up after myself by joining a minimalist Christian cult after high school. It's a long story. Our brother lives in his car and our sister lives in an adult foster home. You never know why people are F up. It's not your job to help them and it's okay to leave. But I think a guy is so good because he had a terrible childhood, too. So he gets it. Edit for the curious. When I was almost 18, I joined a group that was calling itself the JCs, short for Jesus Christians. Now they are known on the internet as Avid, a voice in the desert. They started in Australia in the 80s and are characterized by small nomadic teams around the world that spend their days proselytizing their literature and asking for donations. The funds go towards their RV lifestyle and their good works, egg food and language programs, in countries like Kenya and India. I spent 3 years officially a member and was in touch for many years after, even to the point of marrying an ex-member. Look at my other comments and you will see how well that went. I divorced him after 4 years and moved back to my home state. After years of school and therapy, I am a successful cancer nurse with a loving long-term partner and my very own, clean and tidy, house. Thanks for reading. This thread makes me feel like a rock star for brushing my teeth and taking out the trash. Nomeo. Edit. Maybe I am a rock star? Turns out basic hygiene makes me quite a catch.